We are recording.
All right.
Hello, I'm Coach Andy, and with me is Coach Joe, and we like to talk about men's issues. So, one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is drugs and alcohol. And I think we're going to start with parents who use drugs or alcohol, and then we might develop into children who use it and, from the parents' point of view. So, we'll see how far this conversation goes. Why don't you introduce yourself, Joe?
All right. Well, I am Coach Joe, as Andy said. Thank you for the introduction. We're here just to be real with men, to help men who are struggling with being masculine and trying to overcome issues and not really knowing how or who to reach out to, and maybe feel like it's weak when it's actually the opposite of weak. It's very empowering. So let's get into it.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm Coach Andy. I also coach men, and I help guys who find a lack of control in their lives generally. And there's many areas that guys come to me looking for control, and this is one of them. Drugs and alcohol is one of the ways that a lot of guys turn to. It's one of the things a lot of guys turn to for two basic reasons that I can think of. One is to numb their feelings. A lot of guys say, I don't want to feel, which I find rather comical because most guys actually call me up most often when they're either stoned or drunk so that they can feel. And yet when they're sober, they think, oh, I'm gonna smoke a joint, or I'm going to have a drink, or I'm going to, do this meth, or whatever, so that I don't have to feel. And yet they feel more when they're under the influence. So I find that a little bit funny, actually, because they tend to feel more, and yet they do it so they don't have to feel. And I think there's something to that, about not doing that, about feeling. And so the subject today is parents. Parents as related to the use of drugs and alcohol. Um, Let me ask you: have you had a parent who used either drugs or alcohol?
I've not had a parent per se. I mean, my dad has been a smoker his entire life, but I don't really consider that a
Right,
drug. Some
right,
do, you know.
right. And yeah, again, it depends on the style of use. It's like alcohol, right? It
Right.
depends. It can be overused, but it's not really something that I'm going to call a bad thing just for use.
Right. Now, my grandfather on my dad's side, he was a heavy drinker. He was abusive when he drank to my father, to his wife, to the children in the home, um, and he cursed a lot. So that affected my dad in the ways that he wanted to raise me,
Right, right.
which was not around any of that. Um, but we can get into that later.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly it. I also had a dad. I did have a dad who drank. Um, he got his nickname in a biker bar, so he was familiar with booze all his life. Um, he drank a lot, and although I wouldn't say he had to drink all the time, he was drunk almost every weekend if he was home. And I get the impression that even when he was out, he was drunk most times when he wasn't working.
Mhm.
Um, so, and he, again, like you said, he was very abusive when he was drinking. I know many parents drink so that because they can't handle the stress of either their job or their life. Often they can't handle the stress of their children, so they'll drink or do drugs.
Right.
Many people who don't have relationships do drugs and alcohol as well, but parents do them often for different reasons.
Mhm.
They don't do them so they can't attach to their kids. They do them because they don't feel worthy as parents. The guys who come to me who use either drugs or alcohol, or in a couple of cases both, it's because they don't like how they treat their kids.
Mhm.
They don't like themselves, and it's not necessarily about the children.
Right. Even for me, I've been in that kind of a position, and it wasn't that. Um, well, sometimes it was that I didn't like the way that I handled myself with the kids, and other times it was that the situation, and and I don't want to put this on the kids, but the anxiety that I built up within myself, I didn't want to feel. I wanted to
Right.
feel that anxiety. Um, and the whole time feeling that I should have been able to just handle it. But it was to such a point where I was either going to punch a wall or I was going to grab a bottle or maybe both. And so I would just go and grab the bottle and, start feeling a little bit better. And then I would start playing my guitar or whatever it was that I was going to do, that eventually got me to what I considered a peaceful state until it wore off. And there I was feeling like crap again. you
Right.
know?
And that's a unique experience because some of the guys that I know, some of the clients that I have who drink, some of them they let their feelings out when they drink, and some of them are more peaceful when they drink. And I think there's different people with different personalities, and I think it also speaks to why we drink.
Mhm.
If we drink because we just can't handle stuff, sometimes that triggers those emotions we can't handle.
Right.
And if we drink because of stress or anxiety, sometimes that allows us to relax,
Right.
right? So I don't think drinking is a bad thing in and of itself. Over drinking can be. Alcoholism, drug addiction, they can be a problem.
Exactly right.
Recreational casual use isn't, in my opinion, of either one,
Right.
really. Um, so yeah, and parents really can affect their children. I know. Well, as you mentioned, your grandfather affected your father in how he raised him,
Yeah.
and how he was raised, how he grew up, and it affected his childhood. It was the same with me. My dad drank often. He almost always had a beer in his hand, or better yet, a rye and coke in his hand. And except when he went out west to go into the mountains and go hunting and fishing and do all the rednecky stuff.
Mhm.
He didn't bring booze with him at those times. But if he was home, he was often drunk,
Sure.
and very much took out his anger on us kids.
Mhm.
He wasn't violent to my mom, but he did scream and holler at her often. But he was often violent to us kids, and I think that's it. It does have an effect on a child when their parent isn't available for connection. And one of the things that drugs and alcohol do is they help us to disconnect.
Mhm.
And as a parent, if you're trying to disconnect, your children feel that. My kids felt it if I did it, and I know I felt it. My brother and I, my brother, my sister, and I all felt it strongly from our dad. It was difficult to connect with him.
Yeah. Yeah. In watching my dad in the stories, there's a couple that really stick out, and one that affected my dad is that the way he learned to swim is he was thrown into a lake and said sink or swim,
Right,
right? Which was common back then, I guess, in the early 1900s,
right,
um, and that's just all it was. And but the one that really stood out to me, that really made me go, "What?" is they bought him a bike for his birthday, and I guess it was the next day or within the week, he forgot to put his bike away and he left it behind the car. And so his dad just said, okay, and backed over it. And without a care in the world, just to teach him a lesson.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
which, like, I would never do that to my kid.
right.
Um,
And nor
but,
would your dad.
right.
Nor,
And then, you bring it forward to, now he's my dad and how has this affected him? He's become the strong, silent type who, his alcohol is coffee, and once he's got enough coffee in him, then he'll start talking. But
yep,
other than that, he's just quiet to the point where sometimes it's uncomfortable, and you
yeah,
wonder why.
right,
And so, it took him. Oh, I don't think I was. I was probably 25 before he really started talking. Which
right,
was kind of like, well, wow. And I attribute that to my grandfather and what my grandfather did to him and his other siblings. Now he grew up in a house with 15 brothers and sisters, you
Right.
know, combined, not 15 of each, but, total.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of families do grow up that way. I know my mom was the oldest of seven, and my dad was the oldest of three, and then they adopted two more.
Mhm.
And I know that the responsibility was heavy. Like a lot of the guys that come to me who are the oldest in their family feel a lot of responsibility, and when they have children of their own, that extra responsibility just weighs on them. They feel often the responsibility without the joys of, the joys of having children, the joys of being married, the joys of going on vacation. They often feel the responsibilities of those things, but not the joys of those things. And that's where a lot of them start drinking, to deal with that responsibility. Or, I know of a couple of guys who don't just smoke pot. They might do some cocaine. They might do some meth. They might do, a couple of things, not just to help them kill the emotions. The booze helps them kill the emotions, and then they use some of these other things to help give them a little pep in their step, a little action in their life,
Yeah.
right? And it's all destructive. It all prevents us from connecting not only to our children, but to our spouses and our friends and our family. It makes it difficult to connect.
And I've done
And
that,
yeah,
so I understand that.
yeah. And it's interesting because that's often the reason why we do it, because we want to disconnect with a negative emotion or a negative experience we're having, not realizing that we're also disconnecting with all the positive experiences that we might have. And
Yeah.
maybe that's the point. Maybe we don't believe there is any positive experiences left to have, so we choose to disconnect.
It's that, and sometimes it is that we're so focused on getting something done that we just don't have enough faith in ourselves to believe that we can do it without some sort of push, some sort of enhancement, whether it's coffee, meth, cocaine, or
Right.
people, whatever it is. And that was something that I struggled with back in my early 20s. I'd moved to Arkansas and into an apartment complex, didn't know anybody. And the guy just 3, 4 doors down from me cooked meth in his apartment. He made it right there.
Right. Yeah.
I was working 2 jobs, I think 12 hours a day at each job, and just like crashing hard. And I was like, oh, I need some pep in my step. And so I went over and we made a deal. And now I got meth for free if I babysat his son when he was cooking it.
Right.
And so I went down that road for, I think, 3 or 4 months, something like that. And the only reason I snapped out of it so quickly is because I found myself on the bathroom floor one day looking for this rock of meth. And I thought I found it. And it turned out to be broken bathroom tile that I snorted up my nose, which didn't really feel good.
I'm sure it wouldn't have. Yeah. Yeah.
So it turned me off and said, this might be going toward a problem area.
It might be. Yeah. And it's funny because I lived for a few months at a homeless shelter for guys with addictions, and hearing some of the stories of these guys with their addictions and some of the things that they've done to feed that addiction is it's heartbreaking. Like it's very distressing. I was quite distraught listening to some of these guys and their stories. And my story with addiction has nothing to do with drugs or alcohol. My story with addiction has to do with pornography, and that's why I was there. And maybe that's a discussion we'll have another day. But it allowed me to have a clear head, at least as far as chemical influence is concerned, when I was talking to these guys about their addictions and to some of the stories, like some of the sadnesses these guys had to deal with. And I was only there for 4 months. One guy committed suicide the day after I got there, and I've known three since who've committed suicide after getting out of the center. Right? It really wrecks our lives, and a lot of these guys go to that place because they think it's better than the misery that their real life is.
Well, they don't realize that there's an answer. right? And
Right.
that's what happens is we just keep masking or putting a band-aid on it thinking it's going to get better, and we never deal with what's going on inside, right? We just keep trying to push it down and push it down and push it down. The problem with that is it becomes heavier and heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
So you got to find a way to release it. Well, let me take the easy way out and just go down this road so I don't have to deal with it anymore, right? When I'm done, and I want to a
Well,
better, maybe
and
not.
that's exactly it. It's a lot of them do take that road, and again, that's another discussion that we'll have another time. Is the suicides that I've experienced,
Mhm.
um, and but as far as drugs and alcohol are concerned, they are often the thing we choose to use to give us the ability to do what we want to do. And what we don't often know is that they're usually the cause for why we can't do what we want to do.
Right.
We might
Yeah.
have had it. We might have had a temporary, if long term, but a temporary problem trying to get something done, or trying to achieve a certain thing, or trying to deal with a certain set of emotions or something. And maybe it wasn't just a day. Maybe it was a month or a year, but it was still temporary. It eventually would go away.
Mhm.
And we often will choose to use drugs or alcohol to deal with that problem.
Mhm.
And in the case of today's subject, it's often parents using drugs or alcohol to deal with the stresses of having a family or supporting a family, especially with the guys, it's supporting a family. With women who drink, it's the stresses of trying to put up with the family all day long, you
Mhm.
know.
It can work
And
either way.
pardon?
I think it's important to state that it can work both ways.
Well, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because in our the truth is, in our modern world, the idea of women staying home with the kids and men working all day is as ancient as dinosaurs. It's not. I mean, it still does happen in some families, but it also happens almost as often, or maybe more often, in the opposite direction, where the man stays home and the woman goes out and works.
Mhm.
And so I think it's not so much about the man or the woman. I might say it's the position in the home, or the people who deal with it. But we do that. We still do that. We still might choose. Um, I know a lot of people. I know about 3 people personally, and a lot of others that I've heard stories about from other coaches, um, who actually use prescription drugs to numb their pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
They use prescription, whether it's pain medications, or the new fad is the mental health drugs that you can get for depression or ADD, or a plethora of other conditions. And the doctors will just hand out drugs like candy for those things.
Yeah.
And a lot of people learn to depend on those to numb these feelings, and that still allows them to disconnect with the problem they're having, but it also means they disconnect from the people around them.
Right. And so the problem becomes any lotion, potion, pill, or drink will never take care of the actual problem.
Right,
Right.
right.
Can mask the problem. The problem continues to be there. It
Right.
doesn't go away unless you're willing to step up and deal with it. Right. But you need to
Right.
support them to do that sometimes. Maybe you're afraid to go down there. You don't have a safe place to go. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to do it.
And that's exactly it. So what do you do? What do you do? If I were drinking heavily, maybe I'm drinking a 26-ounce bottle of vodka a day, um, and I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
What would you suggest? I mean, we're coaches, so obviously the obvious answer is go find a coach. But I mean, be more specific. Tell me exactly what you think. How would I find help? How would I ask for help? How would I know help's available? Where would I look?
Well, if you have access to the internet, there's a lot of places you can look, right? So, but I think the important thing to do really, I think the very first step is to find someone who's already been there and solved that issue within themselves. Find somebody who's been in your shoes who can act as a guide. If you find them next door or if you find them wherever, somebody that you can trust, that you can create rapport with, somebody who will not guide you astray and say, oh, let's solve it by drinking more, or let's solve it by doing more drugs, or you don't want to enable the problem, because, and that's the other thing I think we need to touch on, is the parent or is whoever involved in this, is that the the problem isn't necessarily, well, it isn't the drinking, it isn't the drugs. The problem is the problem underneath
Yes.
all
Whatever's causing you to want to drink or do drugs.
that. And that's what we want to get to, and that's what we want to deal with. So who do you know who's dealt with that problem and solved it? Is it a coach? Is it, your
Is
uncle?
it a therapist? Is it a coach? Is it a doctor? Is it your uncle? Is it your grandmother? Maybe it's your dad. You know, um, although in that piece of advice, I would suggest that you avoid people close to you. I'm not suggesting you can't ask for help from friends and family, but those friends and family who are closest to you are usually not the best people to help, because they can't be unbiased in the way that a person needs to be in order to be helpful in this kind of a way. A coach can be, a therapist can be, even distant relatives and friends that you've known that you haven't really been close to. Most of those kinds of people can help. They can afford to be biased or unbiased enough to call you when things aren't working out the way you think they are, to
Right.
call you on it.
The thing is, we don't want, what we're trying to say is, don't have someone who's going to be judgmental toward you. I think that's what we're getting at, right?
Exactly that.
No
That's exactly it.
value placed on it. It should be a safe place that you can go and just be you, and you can say whatever you want, and it's fine.
Right.
And you know it's
Right.
not going to take on as it is.
That's exactly true. And one of the things that I've done to allow for that, myself in my own coaching practice, I've actually changed my business hours around to allow for that. So my coaching hours are 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. so that people can call me in the afternoon or the evening, and I have scheduled calls most weeks, or all week long for those most days for that.
Mhm.
And then it also affords me to sleep till noon, like a teenager wants to. And what that lets me do is stay up late at night.
Mhm.
I stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning, because that's when the problems hit. Especially parents don't want to talk to me when their kids are awake.
Right.
Especially parents want to be able to put the kids to bed first, maybe have a couple of drinks, and then
Mhm.
call me. A lot of the guys who call me will call me when they're drunk. I've got 3 different customers who won't call me until they've had 8 or 10 drinks in them first. So they just aren't brave enough to talk about their stuff until they have. And like you mentioned, have somebody who doesn't judge that. Now,
Right.
I'm not suggesting you should be able to coach somebody when they're drunk. That's not what I'm suggesting. And some of us can and some of us can't. And honestly, I don't do much coaching when they've been drinking. I do just mostly listen and be supportive. But the coaching requires them to be sober. However,
Mhm.
we can still connect and support and listen and be an ear and be a friend. And I don't judge how much they drink or how often they drink or whether they call me when they've been drinking, or if they've had, if they're stoned, or if they've, done some of this or done some of that. I don't judge them. If they can hold a reasonably coherent conversation, that's enough.
Yeah.
Because I'm there primarily to connect.
Mhm.
Now, I do ask that they show up to the coaching sessions, to the scheduled coaching sessions sober. I do ask that. However, it's not a requirement. If they don't show up sober, I'll still help them best I can.
Yeah.
Right. So, like you said, it as much as you can, a non-judgmental person. That can be a distant family member. It can be uh, a distant, not so close friend. It can be a coach or a therapist or some other kind of a professional. It can be many different kinds of people. But what it's very difficult to be is somebody close to you,
Yeah.
your spouse, your parents, your children, your
Right.
mom, your dad, your brothers and sisters, those people who are close to you, or if you have cousins or relatives that are close to you, those are difficult to have this kind of relationship with.
Right. And probably difficult for you to reach out to as well, because you don't want to have it to be that close.
Right, exactly.
Create a bubble of safety, and a bubble of, you know, I can't
Exactly.
get
Yeah, some distance, and that's exactly it. So what does a relationship look like? What does that kind of a relationship look like? So I reached out to you. You're my, I don't know, second cousin twice removed from the, grandfather's mom's side or something. I don't know, you know, a distant cousin. I know you. We've met at a couple of family reunions, but I'm not really, that close. So I reach out to you. How can you support me? If you've had no training and no, don't really know what to do, how can you support me?
Active listening, deep listening to what's really going on, and to help you find out what the problem is, right? Without a line of questioning, because it doesn't matter who you are when you call me. I'm not dealing with you. So there's no judgment on you. I'm dealing with the problem that you're bringing to me that you're having.
Right.
Because you're not the problem. The problem is the problem.
Right. The problem is whatever causing this problem in the first place. Yeah. The person is not the problem. And see, that's an important distinction for us coaches is we hear it a lot in the self-development, the personal development world, in the self-help industry, that to separate the problem from the person.
Mhm.
And it sounds like a fancy phrase. It sounds all wonderful and beautiful to say, oh, great, I can do all these bad things and it's really not my fault. But that's not really what it is. The separation means it's more about the things that you have done may come from a part of you, but not all of you. They don't
Right.
represent your entire set of values. They might represent a value or a couple of values, and they might represent pain or trauma or hurting. They might represent some part of you that isn't all of you. And if that part is something you don't like, we can help you heal and or change that. That's one of the things that coaches specialize in, is we help people unwrap all the things they're not. I heard that at a recent event you and I were at, and I love that. It's not about changing people.
Yep.
It's not about helping us become a thing, anything, whatever that happens to be. It's about unbecoming. It's about unwrapping all of those layers of crap and garbage we've wrapped ourselves in. And
Yes.
that's what coaching does. We really focus on that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I was having a discussion similar to this with another coach. And the way I explained it to her was this. I said, pretend that your mind is a bedroom, right? And this bedroom is just getting cluttered and cluttered and cluttered with more and more stuff. Well, we're going to
You
start
mean
a
like my bedroom when I was 18 years old,
yeah, or mine right now.
right?
But we're in that bedroom, right? We're going to start taking out chunks so that it becomes more clear, so it doesn't feel as heavy, so it's not as clouded. So it just feels better. It looks better.
Yeah.
And
And it might never get prim and proper for perfect. We're
right,
not aiming for that.
right,
We're aiming for a bedroom that you can go in and sleep and be comfortable, maybe make love to your husband or your wife, and just be happy,
yeah,
and not have to worry about, oh, I hate my bedroom, right? I hate my life. We want to give you a life that you're comfortable with, that you're okay with. I don't like the word comfortable because one of the things that we do is we help you dig into discomfort because that's what's causing the problem in the first place.
mhm,
So, but we do help you have a life that you want, a life that helps you feel the way you intend to feel, the way you want to feel. Another key factor about us coaches is we don't have a decision about how we think you should live. It's not our choice.
yeah,
I might have a life as a male prostitute, if there is such a thing as old guy prostitutes, but whatever, we'll just pretend. Maybe I have a life as a male prostitute, and I'm helping all the ladies with daddy issues or whatever, and I got a drinking problem and kids. You're not going to tell me to change my life as a prostitute. You're going to help me deal with the thing I've asked you to help me with, which is the drinking and the problem that comes from that. Now, that problem that caused me to drink might be related to my career. And once I fix that problem, I might choose to change my career. But
mhm,
that's not your goal
right,
as the coach or
right,
as the friend. It's
right,
simply to help. It's simply to help us figure out what the problem is so that we can deal with that.
right. So basically, all he's saying is that we help you achieve a goal.
Right.
And
We
they
help
got,
you achieve a goal. That's exactly what coaches do. We help you achieve a goal, and sometimes, usually, we have to clean out a bunch of garbage to get there.
yeah, absolutely. And it's all about progression. It's not about perfection. I don't believe in perfection. I believe in progression. I
I
can
agree.
keep my garage perfect every day, and I will never succeed. So the same thing is here. You don't have to be perfect. We don't expect you to be perfect. We don't want you to be perfect.
We're not looking for perfection. We're not aiming for perfection, and we won't let you aim for perfection because that's often one of the causes of the problem.
Right. So progression is the important piece here.
Yeah.
Progression, if you're a parent, you don't want to do drugs, you don't want to drink alcohol, you don't want to pop pills, whatever it is, we want to help you progress toward your goal of quitting or doing less.
Or reconnecting to your children, or reconnecting to your parents, or reconnecting to your siblings, or whatever the problem that you see it as. Because often people come to us and they don't say, I'm drinking too much. They might
Mhm.
say, oh, I think I'm drinking too much because this problem. And
Right.
then we got to dig into why they think there's a problem, why they think the booze is causing that problem, and then if the booze is causing that problem, what's causing the booze to be a problem. And then
Right.
so there's often three or four, or sometimes more often more layers, before we actually get down to the root of what's actually causing it. And that's where the breakthroughs come from. We can, in one session, really change a person's life, but sometimes it takes us 4 or 5 sessions to get to that one.
Right. And the other thing about it is, I just lost my train of thought. See, I'm not perfect either.
Well, that's the thing about trains. They do get lost sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
they're on tracks, but nobody knows where those tracks go.
Well,
Uh,
oh, what was I saying? I don't know. Go ahead, take. Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. That's exactly it. It's not about knowing the right path or the best path. It's about figuring out what your path looks like, whatever that happens to be.
Well, I know what I was going to say now, and that is that even if someone knows that they have a drinking problem or a drug problem, they might not come and say that to us at first. It might be, oh, I have an anger problem, I have a depression problem, I have this problem, and nothing is ever said about the drugs or the alcohol, and that's fine too because eventually it will come up,
Yeah.
most likely. There's a chance it may not, but it's more than likely that it will at some point during the conversation, during the coaching.
Right. And back to your profession idea, it's not important that it does, because as you've mentioned, and I agree, the drugs and the alcohol are not the problem in the first place. So
Yeah.
if you come to me, or if you come to us with depression or anger issues, or I can't stand it, my wife keeps hitting me every time I yell at her, I don't know why. If you do something like that, we might solve all the problems that are coming from that,
Mhm.
and then all the deeper stuff and the drinking or the drugs just kind of goes away on its own because you don't need it anymore.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Sometimes you'll come to us with that as part of the problem, and that's okay too. What I'm getting at, and I think what you're trying to say, there isn't a right or a wrong way to approach these things. If you want some support in getting the life you want, we're here to help.
Exactly it.
That's what we do.
That is exactly what we do. And that's a wonderful thing. I mean, and it kind of might be a selfish thing in a way if you think about it, right? Because it makes us feel good to help people.
It does make us feel good, and I do it because I want to feel good, and I do it because somebody helped me at one point. Somebody
Exactly.
helped me get my shit together. Somebody helped me stop wanting to kill myself. Somebody helped me figure out the addictions that I was playing with and deal with those. Somebody helped me get through my life and turn it into something that I wanted.
Right.
And it just so happened that what I wanted to do was be a coach. So that somebody helped me, and I can't keep that to myself. The incredible journey that I've been on is just too valuable to keep to myself.
Exactly. And
It's
that's
just too
the
much.
unselfish part, right? If you did keep it to yourself, that would be really selfish. And that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah,
Is like, yeah, it's selfish because it makes us feel good, right? And we're getting paid by some people. Some people we're not getting paid by.
that's right.
That's important first to put in there because it's not all about money. It
Right.
is about helping people who want help, who need help, who are willing to go out and get the help.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really it. And for us to not share our knowledge and our experience with you, that would be the most selfish thing that we could do. Because just like Andy's had a coach, or maybe more than one coach, I've had coaches that have been wonderful and influenced me in my life. And
Right.
I'll be forever grateful.
Yeah, me too. I've also had therapists that were helpful and many that were not.
Mhm.
So see, it's not about what you get from each person. It's whether or not you get what you want from somebody,
Mhm.
right? Oftentimes we have to go to two or three people to get what we want.
Yeah.
Um, my daughter just went through an experience where she interviewed, I don't know, 10 coaches. She just interviewed 10 coaches over the course of 3 days so that she could find a coach she likes. Not
Mhm.
because she didn't believe she'd find a coach, but because she wanted to make sure that she got a damn good coach.
Good.
Right. So it's not about necessarily just calling somebody up and seeing if I can help. It is really, how much do you want the help?
Right.
If you want the help, there's help available. It could be you, it could be me, it could be a million other coaches.
Mhm.
And many of those are men. There are more and more men helping other men, and not just with fitness or financial problems.
Right.
Right. There are many men who are stepping up to do this work, the emotional work, the deep work, the stuff that matters, with
Mhm.
addictions and with addictions and with drug issues and alcohol issues and with parenting and family issues. We're here to help. We've experienced it. We're trained in it. We'd love to help.
Yes, we would. So hit us up. That's what we're here for.
Hit us up. This is our third video, I think it is, for our channel. So this is still new for us. We're creating it. If you'd like to hear more, obviously subscribe and come back for more. We'd love to share more experiences with you. If there's something you'd like to hear us talk about, please let us know. Drop something in the comments or send an email to our brand new email address, menscoachingcorner@gmail.com. All right. Thanks a whole bunch for all of your time and attention, and we will talk to you again next time.